Retro Mondays.
Hey, what's happening, gamers? K-Wing here, and it's time to turn your Monday into a fun day. Today's game is arguably one of the best looking titles the Sega Genesis had to offer. It's Ranger X, also known as EX-Ranza in Japan. On the surface, this might look like your typical Assault Suits game, but there's a lot more to this robot shooter than meets the eye. Story is the same old tale though. Boy meets robot and fights off an alien invasion to save the world. But he actually doesn't have to fight alone. He has a souped up bike that would make this guy totally jealous, and a spaceship too. The motorbike, called screw it, I'm just gonna call it Ellen. So Ellen here is awesome because it can be controlled by the computer or the player if you have a 6-button Genesis controller. Chip attacks randomly on its own by sending down death from above. Well, once in a while it feels like it. Still, Ranza X can merge with each vehicle to become even more powerful. When combined, you can change the different weapons you've obtained and have a homing attack too. By himself, X is a pretty formidable fighter though. He can fly for a limited time using a jetpack, that is until it overheats and, well, you fall. X can also use a total of 5 nifty weapons that he's picked up from various stages along the way. Each weapon has its own unique punch, so to speak. Before I forget, each weapon also has a meter, and once it drains, you can't use that power again until it's refilled. And weapons being refilled are very tricky and all depends on the level. Example, by standing in sunlight in level 2, that's how you recharge your weapons. So he's like a solar-powered robot superhero type guy. The controls though, in all honesty, feel rather odd because you have to change directions by pressing a button. Sure, it's cool that Ranger X and Ellen can fire in different directions and all that, but I've never really liked having to turn by pressing a button. It kind of reminds me of Metal Storm, but less fun, because at least in this game, tapping a button you would switch gravity. Now for X, well, it's just used to turn around. Yawn. Clearing levels was also a very unique trait as well, because it wasn't just about surviving the clock or reaching the end of the level. Nope, it was about hunting down a certain enemy type and annihilating all of them. The game itself consists of 5 levels, and at the very end of a chapter, you'll face off against a boss, and sometimes these bosses are wicked huge, which is very typical of these type of shooter games. In terms of the game's length, it's actually pretty short. In fact, the whole game can be beat by an expert in about 40 to 45 minutes. Though I do not recommend speeding through this running and gunning game. It's a good way to wind up, well, dead. The challenge factor for this game varies as well, and even on easy, this game is pretty tough. Playing level 4 on higher difficulties is going to make this climb rage-inducing. That and the game's limited continues don't help at all. As for the music and sound effects, they're okay, I suppose. Nothing really impressed me or stood out to me. It's very percussion-driven like most, well, Genesis games. The problem is, nothing sticks out whatsoever. The composition is bland and average at best, which is a shame because these type of games you want to have heart-pounding and exciting music so you get pumped to play it, not, well, this. With all my griping aside though, for its time, this game wasn't too shabby at all. One of the things that this game definitely had going for it and which stands the test of time is its visuals. Somehow, Ranger X was able to bypass the limited 64 color palette system that the Genesis had to work with, along with showcasing incredibly bright colors like that of a Super Nintendo game. Heck, even some parts of this game have very early 3D concepts to them as well, which really isn't bad for a 1993 video game. Sadly, this overlooked classic doesn't have a happy ending, nor any sequels, prequels, or remakes to its name. You see, this Japanese developer went belly up after releasing this game. That's never good. Eventually, they did merge with their former colleagues at Wolf Team to create, well, this company, which did a handful of games for the Genesis and Saturn, and they even worked on the Shining Soul and Shining Tears series, much to the dread of Total Biscuit. So, I know what you're thinking. Is EX-Ranza worth your time all these years later or not? Well, I'm gonna let you decide. I know, total cop-out. The biggest thing critics railed on this game back in the day was pressing a button to switch left and right. That and the difficulty, but just think about this. Pressing a button in order to change directions and fire. But if you like having a game kick your can, then by all means check this one out. If not, might I suggest Cybernator and Gunstar Heroes. Both do what this game did, but better. For me, Ranger X has that wow factor that screams, hey, look at how awesome I am! But it doesn't have the lasting appeal factor, so it's a one-trick pony. Hate to say it, but it's true. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap. Thanks so much for watching another Retro Mondays. All this month and part of February, we'll be looking at a lot of, dare I say, unique Genesis games. If you have any suggestions for Sega games for the show, let me know in the comments section below. Well, until we meet again, gamers, God bless and happy gaming. Be seeing ya.